My name is Lillian Grace Whitmore. I was 32 years old when I finally understood that some families abandon you long before they ever stop calling themselves your blood. I didn't learn it in a dramatic moment. No shouting, no slammed doors. I learned it quietly through a message that appeared on my computer screen while my coffee went cold beside my keyboard. But my story doesn't begin there. It begins on the day I was born. I entered the world with a cleft palate, a visible one, the kind doctors notice immediately, the kind that makes new parents stiffen before they even hold their baby. The doctors told my biological parents it was completely fixable with surgery. They explained it calmly, professionally, said I would grow up looking like any other child, said speech therapy would help, said it would take time, patience, commitment, but it was manageable. My biological parents signed the papers anyway. Before I was 24 hours old, they decided I was too much work. 3 weeks later, a couple who had been trying to adopt for 5 years took me home. Richard and Susan Whitmore didn't see a defect. They saw a daughter. They paid for every surgery out of pocket, 7 of them before I turned 12. Insurance never covered all of it. Dad worked double shifts at the auto plant. Mom learned medical terms most people never have to say out loud. They memorized post-op instructions. They slept sitting up in a recliner beside my bed when the pain made it impossible for me to lie flat. I still remember the nights when my face throbbed and burned, when I couldn't understand why I had to be different. Mom would sit on the edge of my bed, brush my hair back from my forehead, and whisper the same words every time. "You are wanted, Lillian. You are loved beyond measure." And I believed her, because she never once lied to me. Kids at Riverside Elementary weren't as kind. They asked why my lip looked strange, why my speech sounded wrong, why I talked funny. I learned early how to lower my eyes, how to pretend words didn't hurt. Mom and Dad sat with me through every cruel comment, every school meeting, every therapy appointment until the 4th surgery finally corrected my speech. They never treated me like a burden, not once. I grew up determined to be worthy of the love they gave me. I graduated from Ohio State University with honors, built a career in hospital administration, and bought a small house in Columbus with a backyard and a front porch where I drank my coffee on Saturday mornings. I lived a good life, a full one. And through all of it, I never heard a single word from the people who gave me away. Mom and Dad passed within 14 months of each other while I was in my early 30s. Dad from a heart attack at 61, Mom from cancer at 59. Losing them nearly shattered me. They weren't wealthy, but they left me everything they had because they wanted me to feel safe even after they were gone. The house was paid off, there was a modest savings account, and there were letters, dozens of them, written over the years but never sent. Letters telling me how proud they were, how much joy I'd brought into their lives. I kept their photos on my desk at the hospital. I visited their graves at Greenwood Cemetery on holidays and birthdays, sitting between their headstones to tell them about my promotion, my vacation to Nashville, the neighbor's cat that had adopted me. I carried their love with me like armor. Then, 6 months ago, everything changed. A LinkedIn message appeared in my inbox. Rebecca Sutherland. She claimed to be my biological mother. I stared at the screen for 20 minutes. My heart hammered so hard I could hear it in my ears. Some childish part of me, one I thought I'd buried with Mom and Dad, wondered if she was reaching out to apologize. The message was brief, clinical. "Lillian, I know this must come as a shock. I need to speak with you urgently. It's a family matter." I should have deleted it. Instead, I called her and agreed to meet. That decision would change everything. The Starbucks in downtown Columbus smelled like burnt espresso and artificial vanilla. The kind of place designed to feel neutral. No sharp edges, no real character. So people could have difficult conversations without the walls remembering them afterward. I arrived 10 minutes early. I told myself it was because I was punctual. The truth was, I didn't trust myself to sit in my car any longer without losing my nerve. I changed outfits 3 times that morning before settling on jeans and a navy sweater. casual, polished. The kind of clothes that said, "I'm doing fine." The kind of clothes that said, "You don't get to see me unravel." My hands shook on the steering wheel of my Honda Accord as I drove downtown. I forced down breakfast even though my stomach twisted in protest. I needed something solid inside me, something to keep me upright. She was already there. Rebecca Sutherland sat at a corner table, back straight, ankles crossed, fingers drumming against a white paper cup. She didn't stand when she saw me, didn't smile, didn't even look surprised. Her eyes swept over me like she was inspecting furniture. She was 58, highlighted blonde hair, expensive jewelry that caught the light when she moved, a thick gold bracelet, diamond studs, burgundy cardigan, perfect nails. I slid into the chair across from her. "Lillian," she said, like she was confirming an appointment. No hello, no, "It's good to finally meet you," no apology. "My sister," she continued immediately, "is dying." The words hit me like cold water. She said it the way someone might mention the weather, flat, efficient, already braced for logistics. My brain lagged behind her mouth. "I'm sorry," I said. "Vanessa," she clarified. "She's your biological sister. Liver failure. End stage. Alcohol-related. She's on the transplant list at Cleveland General, but the wait is too long." I stared at her. I'd never met this woman, never seen a photo, never known her name. And yet Rebecca spoke as if I'd been waiting for this update my entire life. "I don't understand why you're telling me this," I said. Rebecca leaned forward slightly. "Because you're the only viable donor match in the family." Something in my chest tightened sharply. "How would you even know that?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "I have a contact at the hospital. They accessed your records." "That's illegal," I said. "It was necessary." She said it the way people say, "The road was closed," or "The elevator's broken," as if legality was a technical inconvenience, not a violation. "Lillian," she continued, lowering her voice, "Vanessa has maybe 3 months without a transplant. The list is years long. You're her only real chance." There it was. Not a request, an expectation. She spent the next 10 minutes listing reasons like bullet points. Vanessa was a good person who made mistakes. Addiction was a disease. Everyone deserved a second chance. Family helped family. Her voice was calm, practiced, like she'd rehearsed this speech in her own mirror. When she saw my expression harden, she shifted tactics. "She has 2 children," Rebecca said quietly. "Tyler is 7, Grace is 4. She leaned closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret meant only for me. "Those babies need their mother. You're really going to let 2 innocent children grow up without a mom because you're holding on to something from the past?" I felt something hot flare behind my ribs. I let her finish. Let her believe she was making progress. Then I asked the question that had been clawing at me since she mentioned donor matching. "Why aren't you donating?" Rebecca froze. It was subtle, but I saw it. The pause, the way her fingers stilled against the table. The rehearsed composure cracked just enough to show what was underneath. "I can't," she said finally, eyes dropping to her cup. "Why not?" I pressed. She exhaled slowly. "I already did." My breath left my body in one sharp rush. 3 years ago, she continued, I donated part of my liver to Vanessa. Major surgery, long recovery. The noise of the coffee shop faded into a dull hum. She had already gone under the knife for the daughter she kept. And she kept drinking, Rebecca admitted, voice tight. She destroyed the transplanted liver. I stared at her. So this woman had endured surgery, pain, risk, weeks of recovery for Vanessa, but she couldn't be bothered to show up for a baby born with a fixable defect. "And now you want me to be next," I said slowly. "The backup plan." Rebecca reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her grip was desperate, tight. "It's different this time," she insisted. "She's sober. 2 months now. AA meetings, a sponsor. She's serious." "You said that last time," I replied. Her jaw clenched. "She is your blood," Rebecca snapped. "Your sister. Doesn't that mean anything?" Something inside me hardened. I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. A few heads turned. You gave her part of your liver, I said, my voice shaking with controlled fury. She drank it away. And now you want me to risk my life, my health, my career for someone who refuses to save herself? Rebecca shot up too fast, her chair screeching as it fell backward. She grabbed my wrist, hard. You're going to let her die because you're bitter? She hissed. Because your feelings got hurt? I looked down at her manicured nails digging into my skin. Then I looked her in the eye. She's not my sister, I said quietly. You made sure of that 32 years ago. Her face flushed red. She screamed. Right there in the middle of Starbucks. Called me a murderer. Said I had blood on my hands. Said she hoped I'd never find peace. Phones came out. A barista asked if she should call the police. I pulled free and walked out. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice in the parking garage. But for the first time in 6 months, I felt something close to relief. I sat in my car in the dim concrete parking garage for a long time after I left Starbucks. The engine wasn't running. The radio was off. My hands rested uselessly in my lap, still trembling like they didn't belong to me. My wrist throbbed where Rebecca's fingers had dug in, a faint red mark already blooming beneath my skin. I stared straight ahead and breathed. In, out, slow. I blocked her number first, then LinkedIn, then any other possible contact I could think of. Only after that did I let myself cry. Not the quiet kind, not the dignified kind. The kind that shakes your chest and leaves your throat raw. The kind that comes from finally saying a word you were never allowed to say. No. I drove home once the shaking stopped enough for me to trust myself behind the wheel. My house looked the same as it always had. White siding, narrow porch, the wind chimes Mom had insisted on hanging because she liked the sound. I walked inside, set my bag down, and stood in the living room surrounded by photos of 2 people who had chosen me without conditions. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rebecca's face twisted with rage, heard her voice calling me a murderer. I replayed the conversation over and over, searching for a version where I'd said something different, something softer, something easier. But every version ended the same way. I wasn't going to do it. 2 days later, my phone rang at work. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something, instinct maybe, made me answer. This is Lillian Whitmore, I said. There was a pause. A long one. My name is Gerald Sutherland, the man said quietly. I'm your biological father. I leaned back in my chair, eyes closing. I'm not calling to yell, he continued quickly, or to pressure you. Rebecca, she told me what happened. His voice sounded tired, defeated, like someone who had lived with regret long enough that it had worn grooves into him. I wanted to apologize, he said, for giving you away, for not protecting you, for her showing up like that. I said nothing. You don't owe us anything, he added. You don't owe Vanessa anything. I just wanted you to hear that from me. My throat tightened. Thank you, I said finally. We hung up. I didn't block his number, but I didn't save it either. 3 weeks later, a text came through while I was at my desk at the hospital. Vanessa passed away this morning. I hope you can live with yourself. I stared at the message for a long time. Around me, machines hummed. Overhead, pages called doctors to different departments. Life went on in its relentless, indifferent way. I thought about Tyler and Grace, about growing up without their mother. I thought about Vanessa, this stranger who shared my blood, who had been given chance after chance and couldn't hold on to any of them. And I thought about Mom, about what she would say if she were standing beside me. She would cup my face in her hands the way she used to after surgeries. She would look me straight in the eye and remind me of something she taught me over and over growing up. You are not responsible for other people's choices. I deleted the text. That evening, I drove to Greenwood Cemetery. It wasn't a holiday or a birthday, but I sat on the grass between Mom and Dad's headstones as the sun dipped behind the oak trees and told them everything. About Rebecca, about Vanessa, about the guilt that kept trying to creep in, even though I knew I'd made the right choice. I chose myself, I said out loud. just like you taught me to. The wind stirred the leaves. Somewhere, a bird sang. For the first time since that LinkedIn message appeared, I felt calm. I stayed at the cemetery until the light faded completely. The air cooled, carrying the scent of damp grass and fallen leaves. I traced the letters of their names with my fingertips, the grooves worn smooth by years of weather and visits and quiet conversations no one else could hear. Richard Whitmore. Susan Whitmore, my parents, not by blood, but by every definition that mattered. I told them about Gerald's phone call, about the apology that came too late to change anything, but still landed softly, like an unexpected hand on my shoulder. I told them about the text announcing Vanessa's death, about the way it tried to hand me a burden that was never mine to carry. I didn't answer, I said quietly. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. The words felt solid in my chest. I let it go. When I finally stood to leave, I felt lighter than I had in months. Not because the story ended neatly, it didn't, but because I had stopped fighting a version of myself that never existed. The girl who owed something to people who abandoned her. The woman who had to prove her worth by sacrificing her body. I drove home with the windows down, letting the cool evening air wash over me. For the first time since that LinkedIn message appeared 6 months earlier, my chest didn't feel tight. My breathing came easy. At home, I made tea and sat on the back porch as the sky darkened. The wind chimes stirred softly. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Life continued in all its ordinary, stubborn ways. I thought about the labels Rebecca tried to stick on me. Murderer, selfish, heartless. They didn't fit. I am not a murderer. I am not selfish. I am not heartless. I am a woman who was abandoned as a baby and chosen by 2 people who showed me what real love looks like. I am a woman who survived 7 surgeries, cruel childhood comments, and the quiet ache of wondering why, and still built a good life. I am a woman who knows the difference between family by blood and family by choice. Rebecca can carry her guilt. Gerald can carry his regret. And Vanessa's children will grow up knowing their mother made choices, just as I grew up knowing my biological parents made theirs. Those choices led me to the 2 best people I have ever known. As the night settled in, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. I was wanted. I was loved beyond measure. And I was enough, exactly as I am.